I am going to let counsel explore this, so I am going to let the video in.
I understand.
Now let's compare this to the data from Jen McCabe's phone.
Get your asses up here for a sidebar.
All right. So apparently there is a third-party culprit inside the house?
Correct. There is a slab flooring down in the basement that's made out of concrete. That would answer the question, how he got the fracture on the back of his head. He wasn't in the yard. The only other place he could have been is in the house.
I observed the female in the driver's seat. I did not see any other person, just the female in the driver's seat.
We believe that there is evidence that Mr. O'Keefe was in the house. There is strong evidence that he was in the house.
I'm told there's an objection to something you intend to use during cross. Do you want to come over?
Well, here we go, straight away into a sidebar before Brian Albert was set to testify. Let's watch.
Objection. Can we go to side?
All right. So we are all set to begin?
And here we are at the sidebar. Special thanks to the trial channel for putting the audio together. Let's watch.
This is similar to the video that both counsel and the court ended up indicating they have an objection to the bulkhead to fence to the front yard. I had my investigator go back out. The court had indicated that we should have done it with the investigator and nobody else was in it.
Alan Jackson and his investigator filmed a video from the basement leading out to the front of the yard. However, Alan Jackson was in the video. Generally, if you're an attorney of record, you cannot also be a witness and you can't be part of the evidence. So old Judge Bev made him go back and redo the video, removing Alan Jackson. Let's keep watching.
We did exactly that. All it is a video from the bulkhead. He opens up a bulkhead door.
Is there sound? Is there audio?
There is no audio. The audio has been stripped.
Okay.
He didn't talk on it anyway. I wasn't there. He took the video from the bulkhead. He turns, walks to the fence, goes through the fence and walks to the front yard, and that's it.
It is becoming more clear that after Brian Higgins attacked John O'Keefe, the body was most likely stored in the backyard. And then eventually at 3:15, with a car blocking this view right here, someone moved that body right in front of the flagpole. Let's keep watching.
Probably 15, maybe 30 seconds long.
It's about 51 seconds long. Your Honor, the objection is, and obviously this is within the discretion of the court, but relevancy grounds. I don't know of any witness that puts Mr. O'Keefe in the house, let alone in the basement, in the area of the bulkhead, anything to do with that. So for that reason, the Commonwealth would object on relevancy, as it really is just cause to confuse and mislead the jury about whether or not Mr. O'Keefe. There is no indication that the bulkhead is at all relevant, as Mr. O'Keefe wasn't in the house and wasn't near the bulkhead.
Well, that's their theory, that he wasn't in the house.
Explain the relevancy.
We believe that there is evidence that Mr. O'Keefe was in the house. There is strong evidence that he was in the house. That's probably coming up either today or tomorrow.
Make an offer of proof for me.
Ryan Nagel and Heather Maxson both saw John O'Keefe and Karen Reed in the car together when they turned almost simultaneously onto Fairview from the adjoining street. Both witnesses will testify that based on their looking at the phones, they started paying attention to the house. It was Julie Nagel who started to make her way out of the house. They were there for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, talking about Julie Nagel. Julie Nagel then goes back into the house, decides to stay. She doesn't want to ride home. And as they leave, both Ryan Nagel and Heather Maxson indicate they looked into the interior of Miss Reed's SUV.
John and Karen arrived in front of 34 Fairview at 12:24 and 34 seconds. A few moments later, old Ricky in that F-150 pulls up behind him, and then Julie Bagel comes waddling out of the house. She did not talk to them for 5 to 10 minutes. It's probably more like 1 to 2 minutes. However, when they pulled away in that truck, they looked into Karen's SUV, and only Karen was in the vehicle.
As you go past the SUV, what, if anything, did you observe within the SUV?
I observed the female in the driver's seat. Yes, the interior lighting was on, so that's why I had noticed as we were pulling away the female in the driver's side.
As far as the male passenger that you saw as you were pulling onto the street, could you see him at that point?
I did not see any other person, just the female in the driver's seat.
Proving that John O'Keefe actually exited the vehicle. Here, Alan's trying to argue that John O'Keefe went in the house. That's not proven yet. That's not even substantiated by all the documents and information we have right now. But at this moment in time, it's only trial number 1.
John O'Keefe was not there. Miss Reed was sitting alone, with nobody else in the passenger compartment. They will both say they did not see him standing outside the compartment. He wasn't on the street. He wasn't on the sidewalk. He wasn't in the yard. The only other place he could have been is in the house.
That's incorrect. As we've shown, there was plenty of coverage to the right of the house in front of the garage. And that's where Brian Higgins, sitting in his girly Jeep, sent that text taunting John, "You coming here?" followed by 3 question marks.
Yes, I said, are you coming here? Followed by 3 question marks.
And most likely the attack took place to the right of the house.
If he was in the house, then there is reason to believe that he was in the basement. There is an exit from the basement to the backyard, serving the very area on the same side of the house where John O'Keefe's body was found. That is the defense's theory. That's been the defense's theory from the beginning. The Commonwealth has a different theory, that there were 7 witnesses, 9 witnesses, all of whom walked out of the house or in the same way looked out of the house, and no one saw John O'Keefe's body in the lawn.
Karen's theory here is that John O'Keefe entered the house, went into the basement, and was attacked there. However, since then, her attorneys have now moved away from that theory, and now they're claiming that he went into the house or the garage and then eventually was attacked and placed in front of the house at 34 Fairview.
Which is where they claim he would have been at the time every single one of these people passed by the lawn or looked out onto the lawn. The only other place he could have been is in the house.
That's not true either. He probably was to the right of the house in front of the garage when Higgy Bear attacked him and then moved to the backyard until they finally moved him out to the flagpole.
And what about him being in the house? If that's true, then what? You need to give me some more.
If he was in the house, then the most reasonable place for him to be and be injured is down in the basement. There is a slab flooring down in the basement that's made out of concrete. That would answer the question how he got the fracture on the back of his head.
Do you see how important it is when you're trying to solve who committed a crime not to jump to conclusions? The job here by Alan is not to solve this case. It's to get his client off. But since the Commonwealth of Massachusetts does not have people assigned to solving who committed crimes, that's our job. We're here to figure out exactly where and when John O'Keefe was attacked by Brian Higgins. It definitely wasn't in the basement.
The lacerations to his eyes, the black eyes, the bloody nose will indicate a fight. We've got evidence and we've got experts who are going to say that he looks like he was in a physical altercation.
And we have come to learn that the original theory that John was beat to death in the basement is simply not true based upon the damage on John's face. When you first look at it, it does appear that he was punched in both eyes. We now know that it was the coup contra coup, the hitting of the back of the head and then the brain moving forward that caused those black eyes. It wasn't from punches.
Hit by a car. If he was in a physical altercation that nobody else on the ground floor saw, the only other place he could have been is upstairs or downstairs, such that they would not have witnessed the actual fight or the physical altercation. The most reasonable place for him to be is down in the basement.
What time did the location data indicate that John O'Keefe's phone arrived at 34 Fairview on January 29th of 2022?
First one right to the driveway was at 12:24 and 28 seconds.
12:24 and 28.
Correct.
That's Karen's expert in the first trial confirming that the data on the phone indicates Karen and John arrived at 12:24 and 28 seconds. The expert witness for the prosecution, Sir Ian Whiffen,
I didn't get a degree. I'm from the UK.
claims it was 12:24 and 34 seconds, just a few seconds off. However, there was some controversy initially as to whether John and Karen arrived before that time. It's simply not true. And here, this is what Ozzy and a lot of people didn't understand initially. When you have steps, if Apple determines them to be steps from you actually walking, there will be a corresponding database entry for the distance. Let's find out if the steps taken before John and Karen arrived at 34 Fairview were actually recorded in a distance format. The time frame in question is between 12:21 and 12:24. During that time, we have 80 steps and 3 flights climbed. Remember, initially, everyone was told that little Colin Albert and someone else beat up John in the basement and then left them for dead. However, John's phone simply didn't register any flight changes during the time for which he was actually at 34 Fairview. But when we saw this 80 steps and 3 flights, we thought, okay, that would apply to our original theory. And we see here between 12:21 and 12:24, John takes 80 steps. And between 12:22 and 12:24, 3 flights are climbed. These are the entries from John O'Keefe's Apple Health data with regard to the distance traveled based upon his iPhone. If you look here at 12:11, it says he traveled 99.6 meters. Then at 12:31 and 56 seconds, it claims that he went 25.46 meters. If you notice, there is no entry for the time frame between 12:21 and 12:24 when his phone registered 80 steps. That's critical because Apple will not make a distance entry if it determines that it most likely is not actual steps. They'll register the steps and keep that in the database, but if they determine based upon the GPS data that you're moving too fast, it will not give you a distance traveled, and that's what we don't have here. Now let's compare this to the data from Jen McCabe's phone. She had both an iPhone and an Apple Watch on her, so we're going to get actually better data, but check out what happens here. At 12:18 and 50 seconds, just 30 seconds after her phone indicates she arrived at 34 Fairview, Jen McCabe takes 49 steps. We know that she exits the vehicle and then moves towards the house. This is very critical data. We know she parked in the driveway and then had to get out of her vehicle and walk into the house. That took 49 steps. Some of those steps could be from when she was inside. But more important, Higgy Bear told Yuri and Proctor, which they documented in their report, that he heard Jen McCabe telling John O'Keefe how to get to the house. And we know during this particular time, at 12:18 and 50 seconds, she's on the phone with John O'Keefe telling him how to get to the house. And just 2 minutes later, Higgy Bear sends that text, "You coming here?"
Yes, I said, are you coming here? Followed by 3 question marks.
And because Jen took those 49 steps, it's very likely she's in the house, Higgy Bear is there, and he overhears Jen telling John O'Keefe how to get there. And the data from Jen's watch and iPhone, which are synced, indicates that every time she took steps, Apple registered meters traveled. Compare this to John's phone between 12:21 and 12:24 with those 80 steps and 3 flights. Apple did not enter any distance traveled. That's very important. As we see here, as Jen was walking at 12:18 and 50 seconds, Apple did provide an entry of 34.1 meters traveled. Some of us in our community that are blinded by confirmation bias are trying so hard to have John O'Keefe and Karen Reed at the house at 34 Fairview at 12:21. Their confirmation bias is so strong that they looked at the front of the house and claimed that there would be enough elevation change to actually have Apple register a flight taken. However, we have data from Jen McCabe's iPhone and her iWatch, which indicates no flights taken until she arrives back at her own house. That conclusively proves that there's not enough elevation change for Apple to register a flight when you exit a vehicle and then walk into the house. There was also a huge misconception about the time, and the expert for the defense tried to indicate that perhaps all the clocks were 3 minutes off. That's simply not true. The GPS data, which gives the exact time and location and can estimate the approximate miles per hour being traveled, is very precise, and it's very precise at this time. Between 12:19 and 12:21 and 58 seconds, we can pinpoint exactly where John O'Keefe's phone is and the approximate miles per hour being traveled, and here you can see it plotted along the street. And each hour is a moment in time which follows exactly along the route they took to 34 Fairview from the waterfall. And we just don't have one data point. Using this system, at 12:22 and 14 seconds, we could see exactly where John O'Keefe is, and he's nowhere near 34 Fairview yet. John O'Keefe's Apple Health data indicates 3 flights climbed between the time of 12:22 and 12:24 and 37 seconds. This was critical initially because everybody thought John O'Keefe was being dragged up or down at the house at 34 Fairview. And initially, we were wrong when we claimed that because there was an odd number of flight changes, it would be mathematically and physically impossible for John to have entered the house, made 3 flight changes, and then eventually have his phone at the flagpole at 34 Fairview. We spoke with an actual programmer at Apple, and she explained to us that the Apple iPhone will only register elevation increases. That means when you go downstairs, it won't register that as a flight. That means the iPhone will only register flights when the elevation increases approximately 10 feet. And she confirmed that the iPhone can register flights while you're in a moving vehicle if the elevation increases approximately 10 feet. And that's what we had here, at least at 2 occasions. I do not see 3 elevation increases during this particular route for which Wi-Fi used, because the wonderful Aussie insider indicated that there seemed to be an elevation change from the street to 34 Fairview's front door. that perhaps one flight was registered in John's phone. We went and checked the actual map. So if you look where the hand is, the actual elevation is corresponded right here and also at the top, indicating 88 feet at this particular point. As we move to the street right in front of 34 Fairview, it's 86 feet. And as you move to the front door, there is a 2 feet increase to 88 feet. And the highest elevation at 34 Fairview was 89 feet, which is in the backyard next to the garage. And here is the elevation if John took a path exiting the vehicle at the flagpole and then walking up the actual driveway. It still would only be an increase of 2 feet. To satisfy her confirmation bias that there were flight changes after John O'Keefe arrived at 34 Fairview, the wonderful Aussie used a picture of a car parked on the street in front of the Asian house. And it does look like there is a significant elevation change. But if you look at the map, the elevation in front of the Asian house is 84 feet. And as you move towards the front door, there is a 5-foot increase to 89 feet. That's why it's very important when you make a representation that you need to prove in court, not to your friends, not to people on YouTube. It is very critical you test your evidence. And that's why I praise Aussie and everyone else that has a contradicting view. We need to test it in order to actually prove it when we need to in court.
Fuck off, Vince.
And the basement services the very side of the house where John O'Keefe's body was found. We would want to be able to show that and establish that the bulkhead is a place where if you wanted to remove something large and heavy, you could easily do it. And if you did do it, that would end up right on the same side of the house where John O'Keefe's body was found.
All right. So apparently there is a third-party culprit inside the house?
Correct.
And who might that be?
Brian Higgins?
It's unknown. It could be one of several people.
So under the third-party culprit, I do think this is speculative, but I am going to let counsel explore this. So I'm going to let the video in.
I understand.
Okay? The Commonwealth's objection is noted, but he has to authenticate it.
Understood.
And there you have it, Judge Bev making a huge ruling in favor of Karen Reed with regard to a third-party culprit. You heard Alan right there, not even realizing who the real killer was.
Brian Higgins?
Inside the house. Obviously, we have the benefit of hindsight and additional documents information, and now we know the real killer,
Brian Higgins,
was inside that house temporarily, but was most likely waiting outside that house for John O'Keefe to arrive. And then when the opportunity came for which he was by himself without Karen, he attacked. The main reason we were able to figure out that Brian Higgins killed John O'Keefe is from each and every one of you watching these videos in the community, commenting and coming up with theories for which we can test. I will never, ever block any comments so long as YouTube allows it, and any criticism of me, my looks, anything. I want to hear what you believe happened on this particular date so we can test it. But no matter what, listen closely, Brian Higgins, we will never, ever stop producing these videos until the real killer,
Brian Higgins,
is brought to justice.
That was frustrating to you, that she just stopped communicating.
When I was young, I never needed anyone.
Wasn't it?
No, not at all.
All by myself. Don't wanna be all by.
You had been moving through this mindset of exploring a romantic interest with a beautiful woman who thought was interested in you. And just like that, it was done. Right?
No.
Oh,